You're on the podcast with Dino and Ashley. Yeah, that felt good.
That was all the way up. Not just you, not just me.
Yeah.
It was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is that
I
what
feel like the last couple podcasts we've been trying to stump each other up with it.
Just play it.
And we needed to come and be unified.
You're funny.
Okay, so I have a little hot take.
Ooh.
So we've been discussing shifting up the format a little bit with the podcast. We are going to think about setting it up at the table in the other room.
I wanted to do this last time.
I know.
You couldn't get your life together.
We couldn't get it together. And I wasn't in I didn't start in a great headspace on the last one, but it ended in a great headspace. So it was awesome.
If only we could both be like that empty when going into a podcast so that we can be correctly
That is the desire.
poured out. Yeah.
Is everything that we're doing to be emptied. Everything we're doing in his name, we should be emptied. So that it is only from him and known that it is him.
Yeah.
But we're thinking of changing up the format a little bit and going into the other room and sitting at the table because we have this really cool thing called sofa table. And it's our table with a built-in like bench, but it's a sofa. It's actually the same as our sofa in the other room. And we have it on both sides. So now when we sit at the table for dinner or for breakfast, we end up sitting there for so long with the family.
Because it's all nice and relaxing.
It's so comfortable. Normally we'd eat and get up and all go sit around the sofa. Now we're staying at the table and we're playing games with the kids and there's more conversation. I highly recommend sofa table.
I finished the other day and then just like laid down.
You can lay down after you eat a big meal, take a little nap.
I mean, you know what it's like? It's like at a restaurant, the booths.
It is like a booth.
Like that booth vibe where you're sitting on a nice, comfortable. Yeah.
I found the baby usually sits next to me in her chair, and she'll like while she's eating, can you feed me a bite? Will you help me? Oh, can I sit on your lap? And I'm like, okay, just wait till we're done eating, and then let mommy eat. And now there is no separation because she just sits right next to me, and then all of a sudden she's on me. But I love it. It's sweet. So we're thinking about doing that. And then we're also thinking about live on Instagram. And we do a podcast basically like that. So it would be a live on Instagram where we will record it. People can participate in it. And then it'll be edited and, if we need to, and then put it on.
Yeah. It would be the equivalent of right now, while we are recording this podcast, we have a camera on.
And while I'm stumbling through my words, you can be like, why are you tripping, Ashley?
They're like, wait, after Zach edits it, it's much better.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be kind of fun. So we're thinking about doing that just to, I think it'd be cool to have a little bit of interaction.
Yeah.
We like that. Agree. And we loved when we did the Q&A last year. I guess that was last year. At the end of last year, we did the Q&A. And that was really cool to just get input and some questions.
I almost wish that you would have had that idea sooner because it's such a good idea. I wish that like 6 months ago.
I'm really smart, guys.
You are so smart.
This was Dino's idea a long time ago.
6 months ago?
I said a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Just making sure we're on the same page that I did say this idea 6 months ago.
You did. And I was like, that's so stupid. We're not going to do that.
We were hanging out with Brooke again. Like Brooke was here for work stuff. And I was like, hey guys, you two are talking about, hey, what if we change things up? I'm like, yeah, what if we did this? And you guys were like, that is a good idea. I'm like, I said this 6 months ago when we started the podcast and we should try it this way. I'm not going to say I told you so. I'm not going to say that.
Welcome to our lives. We do this to each other.
It's true.
We both do it to each other. I probably steal more of your stuff.
Oh, no, lately it's been really funny because what I've been doing with you is I mess with you way more. And I don't know I'm doing it because you'll say something super profound. I'm like, yeah, uh-huh. And then I'll be talking with Eric or the guys or Suze. And I'll be like, man, Ash, Suze said the most profound thing lately.
I'm like, I said that to you 3 days ago.
I just said that this morning. I'm like, not as good as that, though. It was like different. It hit different, all right?
You did this the other day. I said something to you, and I was like, it's about this. This is what is happening right now. And then it was like 2 days later, we were in the shower, and you're like, it just hit me. I was like, this is what I've been saying to you the whole time.
You actually like stared at me like, are you serious?
I thought you were joking.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Because the kids are doing this to us also.
Oh, man, the kids. We're in a phase right now where it's not good because they're actually getting very smart, but not in a good way.
And they have our sense of humor, which is scary
they're
too.
getting manipulative, but then they're also learning that they can screw with us in the manipulation. It's so wrong. And then they gang up on us, which is great because I've always wanted them to figure out how to work together, but they're only working together against us, not in
But
anything
we're shutting that
productive.
down so fast.
It's fine. All right, little hot take on this one. One thing that we've been doing and we're planning on doing this week is we ran into a head on things, and it just kind of came to this.
We need a nice reset.
Yeah, we're going to push a reset button with our kids. We recommend it with you guys too.
We do this quite often.
If you notice your kids getting out of line and your house is in disarray and not in order, then get it back in order. And the best way to do that is to let that pendulum swing way back the other way.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're shutting everything off and everything is instantaneously responded to, like with perfection.
Yeah, we just sit down. Perfection.
Well, it's like, hey, if I say this, it's like I'm expecting now, I'm going to sit and wait that it is done instantaneously. And if it's not, then that is not, or that's disobedience.
Yeah.
If I say, please get up and take this and put it in there.
So what we do is we sit down with them and we'll have a conversation with them and say, listen, we have been slacking. We have not been responsible in the things that we've supposed to be been responsible with in holding you guys to the things and to the standard of our family and like biblically what we want to be doing with you guys. So we're going back to the things that we already know, but we need to be reminded of. First time obedience. We're obeying mom and dad the first time. And that's
Right
the one thing that we're feeling this week is this like, hey, okay, we're going to get up right now and go empty the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, 1 second. I just got to finish this. No, go do the dishwasher right now. Oh, but I'm almost done with this thing. And we've like allowed this like slight,
right. Yeah.
because they're older too. And we want to allow for conversation.
Exactly. I'll give some level of compromise, but now it's basically, that's the default.
Yeah.
But why?
It went too far.
Yeah, I'll do it in a minute.
Yeah.
It's not, so now they're trained to do that. The other one is we've been training them to barter with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why? And when I tell them, all right, 9:30 is the bedtime, why don't I just say that's it? And like, we're done. Why is it always 9:30 is 10:30 and then it's 9:45 and then back? And by bartering back and forth, I'm giving them the option.
I know. We were really good at this when they were really young too. It was like first time obedience, the very first time, that is it. 7 o'clock bedtime, that's bedtime. Go pick up your shoes, first time. Like there was because if you allow them to do it the second time or the third time, then you're training them to do it the third time, not the first time,
Yep.
And so we just need to remember that. So we're going to start with a conversation with them. Everybody get on the same page so it's very clear and there's no misunderstanding what's happening.
Yeah.
And we need to be just to hold to it.
Yeah. If I say don't touch that and then they continue to just not listen, then I'm training them that my words don't really mean that much.
We need to bring back respect and reverence. So
we're going to fix
And you
some
know
stuff.
what? These are good things to do within our marriage, like to reset within our marriage. If you're starting down like a path of talking negatively about each other or putting the other person down or manipulation or whatever it is, like it can be like, okay, I don't like the way we've been talking lately. I don't like the way that we have been, the path that we're moving down. Let's stop. Let's get realigned. What is our vision? What is our goal? Where do we want to be going? Let's get on the same, let's do a reset right now.
This is 100% fire. How many marriages don't just say, hey, there's this thing that's grinding and driving me crazy. I'm going to just go and have a conversation about, hey, this isn't a thing. I don't like it when you're constantly nagging me on things. Like, let's have a conversation about that. Hey, this took place. I want to try and find a different way of us going about this. What can I do to shift just us having a conversation and confronting it? Because the alternative is to allow that thing to sit there and grind.
Which I do
for
believe
the rest of our marriage.
The majority of believers do that. I'm sorry. Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The majority of people in marriage do that.
Yeah.
And the majority of believers do that because I think we think confrontation is in some way sinful.
Yeah.
Like we just have to just take it. I just need to receive it and it's fine.
Oh, man.
And just let it go. And we're seeing in our lives how unfruitful that is and how it actually can be extremely destructive outside of marriage. Think about inside of marriage too.
100%.
100%.
100%. Yeah, I think you basically just stumbled on basically what the topic of the podcast really needs to be today. There's this misconception, like just to reiterate what you just said, there's this misconception amongst Christians that you have to be a doormat to another person. And that is not how that works. Let's just put in this in a categorization. So let's use you and I as an example. There are certain things that if I do to you, it's definitively biblically wrong in how I treat you. And therefore, you have the right in that scenario to have a conversation with me about it and say, hey, this is not a way that I want to be talked to. And I'm letting you know that this type of thing is, I mean, there's a loving way of going about this, and there's a way of unpacking it that really gets to the root cause of it. But in general, the question the conversation becomes, hey, this is a boundary that I pretty much need to set with you. I don't want to be yelled at anymore. I just want to be conversed with in a way that makes it so you and I can be productive anymore. Not like you yell at me.
No, totally. But there's so many areas we can say that. You know, when you say something like this, when you talk to me this way, I feel like you're trying to manipulate me, and I want to be on the same page with you. And that's why communication is so important within a marriage, because we don't want any of those things building up in us, because it's going to build resentment and bitterness. And what we're seeing too is it builds up a case about the other person. You create a narrative around the other person when you don't fully communicate the things that you're wanting to communicate, and they're the issues, and you allow them to fester and build. It creates a narrative, or it allows a door to be open for Satan to create a narrative about that person that is incorrect.
Yeah, because then you start to see them in a way that your flesh and Satan wants to see them, instead of the way Christ wants to see them.
Which is to be thinking of somebody in love and building them up. And that's how we should be thinking
and a desire to restore and come alongside, instead of, man, they're my enemy.
Right.
And they are not your enemy. No, you as my wife are not my enemy. Outside people that are coming after us are not my enemy.
Yeah.
They are someone that I have a desire and a command to go and try and restore a relationship with, and try and fix over here, and try and help and encourage, right?
Yeah.
It's building a narrative against another person with the intent of trying to make yourself feel better is not productive.
Yeah. So then on the flip side of that, then you have somebody that hears that advice and takes that to another level. And now they're like, oh, well, I'm going to tell you everything you're doing wrong. And I am so good, and in Jesus's name, like Jesus told me, God told me that you are really being disobedient. And I just constantly come at you with like all the things that I feel. How would you suggest dealing with that?
As a person who does it, or a person that it's being done to?
Well, just in general, like I guess both.
Man, that's such a good question. I mean, in general, the best way to handle that in both scenarios is to know God and to know his word, and to know who you are in Christ, right?
Yeah.
Because then when a person comes to you, you and I actually have had a conversation this last week about, man, if only I could respond the way that Christ is responding in this part of the Bible that we're reading, right? Where Christ gets confronted by an accusation or something like that, and he's never defensive and like attacks back or bites back. It's always, I'm going to be patient and calm in what you're saying. And then I'm going to just ask a few questions at you that really get right to the root of it.
Well, it goes to what we were just reading in, I think it was Matthew. Yeah. And they were talking about the parable of working all day or working in the field. Yeah. And how one person was mad that the people that started later in the day got the same wages as the people that started in the beginning. Yeah. And I said to you afterwards, after we read it, I loved Jesus's response there, because he said, friend, he called them friend, which was like nice. But then the rest of it was very firm and authoritative, but it was with love. Yeah. But he said, friend, did we not agree to this beforehand? Did we not agree to this? Yeah. And, and then he just like laid it down what the truth was. Yeah. And so with truth and in love, we can respond to people and we can have that stance, but like you're right, it has to be done with, well, how would Jesus do it? Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be my go-to answer is if at the same time, okay, so let's say, take a scenario where you are just constantly trying to modify me. I think that to get back to the root of it, the first and foremost is to know who I am and where my strength is, number one. Number two is to see the speck that you see in my eye while there's potentially a log in yours, and then actually receive aspects of it. be like, okay, what is the root of what this person's trying to say to me? And is there a deficiency there that I can actually make a modification to? And even in the light of them conflating this small thing into something that's actually much bigger, okay, where is the truth in the aspects of this so that I can try and have a molded attitude in this?
Yeah.
And then understand, okay, funny thing, you and I are dealing with one of our children right now with one of this, where they have a legitimate need from one of us. They basically need more affection, time, attention, but the way that they're going about it is incorrect because they have poor tactics. They're starting to learn to be manipulative and try it. So for example, they'll go to you and talk about me, or they'll come to me and talk about you, or what they'll do is they'll
Which
just,
should never be allowed
No,
in general. I don't like the poor talking about each other.
There's I don't know, some parts of it, a time and a place. In one of those instances, I was being very hard-headed and not wanting to hear what she was saying. And it was a good opportunity for her to go to you, be heard.
I guess allowed isn't the right word, but it needs to be handled correctly. I should never sit with one of our kids and be like, he's the worst. It should be a listening and receiving, and then a building up of, let's fix this.
Yeah. But back to what I was initially saying is that if you have a spouse that is potentially manipulative in these types of scenarios, that's ultimately just a bad tactic. But is there the root of their tactic? Is the strategy behind what they're trying to do, or the truth behind what they're trying to do bad tactically? Is that something that I can try and hear and address while at the same time then so I can handle it, mute any of the attacks going forward, and then also at the same time address the underlying bad tactic? So for example, I don't give you affection, and you then manipulate me and use guilt or nagging or whatever to get a bad tactic to get something out of me, that affection that I should be giving you, or that love that you need. Instead of me getting upset and retaliating and
pulling away even more.
I take a beat, understand the root of what you're trying to say, even if it's a speck in my eye when there's a log in yours, or that's perceived how it's going on. And then what I do from there is I say, okay, I'm going to address that and remove the barrier so that her and I'll give her the affection that she actually needs, even if it's difficult. I'll give you what you need. And at the same time, start to try and work on the underlying tactics that are not healthy for our relationship. Yeah. So, okay, I'll give you your affection, but then I'm also going to come to you and say, hey, I totally hear what you were saying. And I understand that I was lacking in this thing that you were asking of me, but let me help you with a more effective way of getting that from me. Mm-hmm. If you go about it in this way, I'm going to be much more responsive. And from my perspective, I feel like that's actually a much healthier way for you and I to engage with one another, so that in the future, you can come and get the thing you want without it being an issue between you and I. I can just understand, oh, okay, this is what you want. I can give that to you. Yeah. I'm sorry. I should have given you what you've needed this whole time when you wanted it, you know?
That's doing the work in marriage right
there. It is. That's difficult.
That's like a small, interaction. Mm-hmm. And the amount of work that goes along to correct that is a lot of work.
A lot.
But so huge, because you correct that, now you just gained this.
Yeah. That's really, really hard work. And I think that you just nailed it on the head in that marriage is hard freaking work. Mm-hmm. You can't just go into marriage and assume, this is supposed to be really easy because I like this person and we got married and it was really fun, and now it's not so much fun, but fine, we'll just live side by side. We'll just do this. Well, it's not automatically happening. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. It literally, you can't expect to get something out of it without investing a huge amount in. Yeah. But the really cool part that I keep going back to is when you do the work and you invest in, you get a whole bunch of really, really great stuff out of it. Yeah. It is way better, especially then if you can kind of hit that critical mass, right? Where, all right, I'm pushing, and then you hit the top of the hill and it starts to turn over the other side of it, and things get real easy and smooth because you've put the work in to try and make it so you and I have good, I've spent the last 18 years modifying how you and I communicate with intentionality, so that now I can look at you and you be like, I can just say, hey, with my eyes, like, you didn't need to talk to me that way, and be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I love you. All right, we're cool. Like, you and I can have that level of a fight with a look. Yeah. And it just be instantaneously done with now, Yeah. But that's taken so much time and intentionality into it, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. So I was going to say, so you basically answered if you were being the receiver of some sort of
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah.
Now, what if you were the giver of the feedback? Like if you are in Job's story, the Eliphaz and his buddies, you know, how do you bring something to somebody with love, but how do you know when to do that? How do you bring it to them?
No,
Because
this is a
you
good
can,
question.
like we were saying at the beginning, there has been people that we've seen that you can just overly do that. It's just, that's all you do.
Yeah.
And you do it in Jesus's name too.
Yeah.
So you feel
Yeah.
justified.
Yeah, I think that this straight up is told exactly by the Bible how we're supposed to do this, and that you are supposed to restore with love and to come alongside and give a good amount of building up at the same time. I mean, you and I literally have just been reading the biblical formula of how to go about doing this, right? Why don't you say what you've been learning on this lately in terms of that specifically, you know?
Yeah. I mean, especially with words and the way that we interact with believers and everybody around us, that, words and it should be to be building up, and correction should be in building up first and foremost.
Yeah.
It should be pushing us towards Christ, not away from Christ. And it should be out of love in that correction.
Yeah. You know what's really cool? It's a total tangent on this, and I'm sorry for messing up your thought, but it's really, I just had to say this. I knew you would the answer you would just have, and it was going to be straight up out of the Bible based on the fact that you and I have been reading our Bibles together, the same exact content together, conversing about it, praying about it, going before the Lord and begging him to actually modify who you and I are in that respect. So it's like, of course I know where you're going to go with this, and what a cool alley-oop scenario on this, you know? Sorry.
It is the coolest thing I think we've ever done in our entire marriage.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
And all right, well, another tangent on a tangent here is that
this whole podcast is a hot take within a hot take. It's Inception with hot takes.
This is the mind of Dino and Ash. We bounce all over the place. But I have always kind of not prioritized. I'm going to just be honest on this. I've not prioritized.
Wait, what? Honesty?
I know. I'm going to be a little honest and vulnerable. I've not prioritized this because I don't feel like there's been a lot of the fruit that I want out of it, you know?
Yeah.
But man, there's not only did I get out of it more than I thought I was going to get out of it, but it overflows into all the other things that I also really like with you.
Yeah.
You know,
it's definitely making me way more attracted to you. And I was already very attracted to you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, well, I really, really enjoy the physical side of you in my relationship, the friendship side of it, the fun side of it. Like there's all these different facets that are in our relationship.
And we've had the spiritual side.
We have.
But it was
never, to your point this morning in our reading and praying together, prioritized. It's never been like, hey, shouldn't this be number one that you and I, and then allow the other priorities in our marriage that you and I collaborate on to be maybe 2, 3, and 4? Because if it's put first and not just alongside them all as number one, maybe things will go better for us.
Yeah, it has a hierarchy and a value, and then what God's doing up here then can reign over everything else that's in our lives. I think we had things maybe teensy bit over the spiritual level. But we were saying this morning, maybe they were all at the same level, but I think we
were in sin. It was wrong.
Those things were a little bit more, you know. But we would like to think that they were maybe around the same level.
How cool is it that God's grace still has been poured out on us, and that we haven't prioritized the right things at the right time in our marriage, but God still has blessed both our marriage and blessed all these other things that we still wanted to go and do. You know, we were like, hey, let's get after it with our finances. Let's get after it and have a lot of fun together. Let's get after it and have a family and do all these other things. But God's like, hey, if you put this first, all these other things will go really, really way better. Can you just do that? And we're like, yeah, okay, but we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And now we're doing it, and things just, not only are those other things going better, I care about them significantly less, because the thing I really care about the most is the spiritual relationship with you. It's just something that's a huge priority to me.
Yeah, which means that if things are going poorly in the other areas, it's okay, God's moving.
I don't care.
And it's
I'll figure that out.
Totally.
Because this is over here really, really, really well. And it's actually that same mindset of Peter walking out on the water. He could see Christ and only Christ, and the ability that Christ had over that water. You can just see the world for what it is while the chaos is all around you. It's like, oh no, God, it's just me and God. It's just me and Christ hanging out together.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you and me. We're learning, it's just you and me reading our Bibles, learning and growing in God, and then our life kind of happens.
Yeah.
And that's cool,
Yeah.
you know? So anyways, all right, back to like, we have to uninception this and go back, unravel all the way to where
What is
you were
this
talking
podcast about again?
It's just, at this point, I don't know how the heck Brooke and Zach ever come up with like titles for podcasts, because it's everywhere. Like,
Let's call this one Inception.
Seriously. But back to the original point of what you were talking about. We were talking about correcting your spouse and how best practices, and you had something insightful.
Well, I just was talking about being the corrector and how to do that. I remember when we first got married, we probably got in an argument or something like that. But you said to me, you know, the advice you just gave, if you can't come to me with the right time, with a gentle heart and gentle words, I'm going to hear it much better than you coming in hot or trying to, who knows, I'm sure I was manipulating you and nagging you back then. And you said that to me, and it's always stuck in my head. I'll never forget that. Now, have I been able to do that fully forever? No, but I remember it.
Yeah. I mean,
and I see the value in it.
I have in my mind seared this one memory, and it was probably back in the Donnybrook house where I was mad and like yelling and out of control and totally in the wrong for whatever I was doing. And you just came over to me, and everything I was saying to you was just like right past me. Yeah.
Pew, pew.
And you just looked right at me with a smile on your face, and you came up and put your hand on the side of my face like this. And I just like fell apart. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I did.
Oh man, it like literally now even still, it breaks me and remember it. Like that is a core memory I will have forever of me being like angry and like crazy. And you literally just came to me in this Christ-like way of like, hey, I love you, and calm. Like you're fine.
Is a soft
like,
answer turns away wrath? Is that it goes back to what we were talking about last week with forgiving somebody before they need forgiveness. If I could even remember that I did that and do that more, if we could do that more within our marriages when the other person's hot, and you've done that with me. I know many times when I've been like upset and we're not getting anywhere in the argument, and you could tell, and that all you need to do is break down my walls, and you come over and you'll hug me, and I'm like stiff as a board, and all I want you to do is get off of me. That's what my flesh is saying, but my inside is like, hold me tighter. Right?
How amazing is that, though? All right, that's just a very good tip just on this one, okay? If your spouse is getting into it.
Are you crying? I'm tearing up.
Yeah, you got me a little bit on that one, because it's just that sweetness in marriage. And when another person can return a harsh word with a loving word and kindness and softness and tenderness, and that is, I feel like, only possible like through Christ. It's only possible through the Holy Spirit working in you. Yeah. And when it happens, what an amazing gift that is for one of the two spouses to go to the other when when it's just like in a harsh moment, and to return the person with love and softness. It's just,
I think we needed last week's episode of the forgiving before somebody deserves it, or we think they deserve it. And then this now is that other layer and that next step in our words. So we're forgiving them in our heart as they're, upset with us or upset with whatever the situation is. We're forgiving them, and then our words are for building up. But we can only have that that's only the Lord that can do that.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, I think that you just nailed it. So just to recap what we've kind of gone over here.
Well, really quick, because also in that moment, what wants to come out too, if we forgive them, if we're able to forgive them in that moment, then the words, we're filled with that peace, where we have God's grace on us to be able to forgive them. We're filled with that peace so that the words are going to be building up. If we don't even start with that forgiveness, how can we even have the words to be able to build them up? And then our words are either going to be building up and pushing people towards Christ, or they're going to be tearing them down.
Yeah. And to your previous point, why would you ever want to tear your spouse down? Why do you want to be married to a loser?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You want to be married to someone that you respect and love and adore. Therefore, shouldn't your behavior and your responses to how they're acting be reflective of that? Right? Yeah, that's a hard one to put into practice. But when you're not in the thick of it, you can you can see that that is clear. Like I really feel like what the case that you and I have just given is clear, that everyone would agree with this. Yes, that is the right way to react. And yes, that is the net result I want to have out of this.
In those moments, it is the most difficult thing because our flesh reigns, and our sinful desire and selfishness and our pride is so strong. It's so like heated. But the more we know God and the more we're seeking after him and the more we're reading his word, the more that his grace is overflowing in our lives, and those words and the truth about ourselves and each other is mulling in us, so that the overflow that's coming out of us in those situations is a little bit more clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can make this decision and I can make this decision. What's the end goal? What is the desire? What do I want out of this?
Yeah.
What does God want out of this?
Yeah, exactly. Who does God want me to be in this scenario? And how should I then respond to this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a huge chunk, I think, of this year that you and I have continuously gone back to, and even something we talked about this morning, is to know God, meaning to read his word, to study him and seek in a depth, in a deep way, to try and understand what his word is and who he is, and then to be known by him.
Yeah.
Where you take those things and you actually change and modify and allow your flesh to be put into submission. Because to your previous point, my flesh screams to fight you.
Yeah.
To be have justice in where I want justice.
Yeah.
And it's so opposite of what God's word says and what he commands of us.
Yeah.
And I feel like to be known by God is to say, hey, reading your word and knowing who you are, I'm now going to allow you to modify who I actually am.
You corrected me this morning when I said, us reading our Bibles right now, it's not just about like reading and getting into the word. It's about like studying it. And then you're like, but it's not studying it either, because like we're not just reading it to memorize it and reading it because there's a lot of people that know the Bible.
Absolutely.
And can speak all the words and can eloquently describe things and break things down, be very good teachers.
Yeah.
But are, like you said, to be known by him, he is dwelling in us.
Yeah.
There's no more of me, and it's him.
That came out in a conversation we had yesterday with some friends while we were just hanging out with them. He was talking about how he was looking for a church, or in the attributes of the church that he was looking for. And I'm not even going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but because that's another conversation. But the one thing that really stood out to us was that he said, I want to see the fruit in people's lives. I want to see an overflow of God being manifested in people.
Yeah. Well, I think it is important I like what he said, because I think so much of us in general, it's easy to pick apart any church and just be like, well, the worship isn't good, or the teaching isn't good, or blah, blah, blah. We just find so many things about the church serving us, and we're supposed to be there to be serving the church and the people, part of the body. But I loved that he said that all that stuff is fine, but that's not my top priority. My priority is seeing the fruit, and that the people that are the body of the church are the body of the church.
They are known by God.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know God, but they are known by him, meaning they are being modified and transformed and changed, and the overflow of that is then this picture of love amongst their peers, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wouldn't mind that for you and I.
I'd love that. Yeah.
I feel like that is definitely the priority in my life right now, is just to know God and to be known by him, And how amazingly cool is it to see be in a marriage where my spouse is desiring that exact same thing, and we're chasing after him like full on together. That is very fruitful.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
That's it.
Unless you have something else.
I know.
I think that was pretty good.
I know, it was good. I just feel like I could go on forever talking about how the words but I think we really hit it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So just to recap, the one thing like we have been talking about, I think specifically here, is, both giving and receiving feedback to one another with the intent of trying to not just set boundaries, but to set better your marriage and better the mechanics and better the way you interact with one another. I feel like the center of it really comes down to, in a most idyllic state, both of you are seeking after the Lord and knowing him and knowing his word, but then also submitting yourselves and submitting your flesh to him so that you can be molded and shaped. And then at the same time, in a loving way, correct your spouse where you're building up and desiring to have a spouse that's stronger. That should be your mentality.
Yeah.
Not one of, how do I make my spouse give me what I want? How do I make my spouse do more of the thing that I want them to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just,
that should be our mentality in our lives.
Yeah.
With everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I build up those around me and get them to a point where they're seeking after the Lord more?
Because also, if you think about that and building each other up, if we're practicing that in our marriages, how amazing. And if we're practicing that outside, then we're excited for people when things are exciting for them. When things are going well for them, we are cheering alongside of them because our hearts are for building up and not tearing down.
Yeah.
And our hearts are about them and not about us.
Yeah.
Solid. Okay, so maybe next podcast, maybe it'll be a live one. We can try to do that this week.
Sure. We'll have to I don't even know how we're going to do that setup wise, but we'll figure it out.
I think that'll be really fun.
I think so too.
So watch for it on Instagram, Arrows and Bell. You can find us on Instagram at Arrows and Bell.
If you like this, don't forget to join and subscribe. No, like and subscribe. Yeah.
We don't even know how to do the sign-offs. I feel like we should be saying stuff. If we were with a company,
they would
be like,
say
you need to say this at the end, okay?
Yeah. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. It does help us and helps other people be able to receive this and be able to make forward progress on being impactful with people's lives and their marriage. I mean, how cool would that be if you and I had an ability to be transformative with other marriages? That's the only reason why we're doing this. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
It ain't for the money, let me tell you. I'm just kidding. But I am not kidding.
Yeah. But seriously.
We're not getting paid.
All right. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.